The 5th SS Panzer Division Wiking, an elite unit of the Waffen SS. The 5th SS Panzer Division Wiking was an elite unit within the set of divisions that made up the Waffen SS. Its formation included volunteer soldiers from various nations, including Finland, Estonia, Norway, Denmark, the Netherlands and Belgium, although its command structure remained in the hands of German officers. Throughout World War II, the division underwent significant transformation, evolving from a motorized infantry unit into an armored force. Its deployment was primarily concentrated on the Eastern Front, where it participated in numerous engagements. After Germany's surrender in May 1945, its troops surrendered to US forces in Austrian territory. The successful performance of several Waffen SS units, such as the Leibstandarte SS Adolf Hitler Regiment, the SS Verfügungstruppe Division, and the SS Totenkopf Division during the initial campaigns in Poland and the Western Front, led the High Command to consider expanding the number of divisions. With the massive influx of foreign recruits, particularly from Belgium, the Netherlands, Sweden, Norway and Denmark, the decision was made to create a new division composed of non-German volunteers, though always under the leadership of German officers. Initially conceived as the Nordische Division, No. 5, this unit was formed with the purpose of integrating volunteers from Nordic countries, along with Waffen SS veterans of German descent. To establish its structure, at the end of 1940, the SS Infantry Regiment Germania, which had previously belonged to the SS Verfügungstruppe Division, was transferred and used as the foundation for the creation of the new division. Initially, in December of that year, the unit was named SS Division Germania. However, during its organization phase, a decision was made to change its designation. Finally, in January 1941, it adopted the definitive name SS Division Wiking. The division was organized around 3 infantry regiments. Germania, primarily composed of ethnic Germans; Westland, mainly made up of volunteers from the Netherlands and Flanders; Nordland, consisting largely of Danish, Swedish and Norwegian recruits. The leadership of this new unit was granted to Brigadeführer Felix Steiner, who had been commander of the SS Deutschland Regiment within the Verfügungstruppe. After its formation, the division was moved to Heuberg, Germany, where its training was conducted. By April 1941, the SS Wiking Division was deemed ready for combat. In June of the same year, it received orders to move eastward, participating in the advance of Army Group South over Ukraine as part of Operation Barbarossa. That same month, the Waffen SS Finnish Volunteer Battalion was established, composed of soldiers from Finland. After completing their training, this unit was integrated into the SS Nordland Regiment in January 1942, strengthening the division's operational capacity. From the start of the offensive against the Soviet Union, approximately 430 Finnish combatants, veterans of the Winter War, were already part of SS Wiking Division. In the spring of 1943, this Finnish contingent was withdrawn and replaced by a battalion composed of Estonian volunteers. First engagements on the Eastern Front. In 1941, SS Wiking Division soldiers were sent to the Soviet front to perform surveillance duties. The unit was not fully prepared for combat until June 29, 1941, a week after the start of the German offensive. Its first battle participation occurred near Tarnopol in the Galicia region of Ukraine, where it achieved a notable performance. In August, it received orders to fortify a defensive position around a bridgehead on the Dnieper River. Despite constant attacks by the Red Army, the division managed to hold its position. As enemy resistance intensified, the unit continued its advance towards Rostov-on-Don, engaging in fierce battles for control of the city. In November, it received orders to withdraw towards the Mius River defensive line. Winter battles and German High Command's doubts. During 1941, here officers responsible for deploying SS Wiking Division had doubts about its combat capability, avoiding assigning it large-scale missions. However, after multiple demonstrations of effectiveness on the battlefield, the division gradually gained recognition, albeit with some reluctance, from the High Command of the German Regular Army. After successfully holding its positions during the winter of 1941 to 1942, SS Wiking Division was ordered to recapture Rostov-on-Don and advance into the Caucasus, with the mission of securing the region's vital oil fields. This offensive, known as Operation Mouse, was part of the strategic plan of Army Group South, known as Case Blue, whose main objective was the capture of Stalingrad and the Baku oil fields. Launched in the height of summer, the campaign achieved far better results than expected. In a period of 6 weeks, the German army managed to recapture Rostov and the entire Don region, allowing SS Wiking Division to penetrate deep into the Caucasus. At the end of September 1942, the unit received orders to launch an assault aimed at capturing Grozny, a strategically valuable city. For this operation, it coordinated with the 13th Panzer Division, led by General der Panzertruppen Traugott Herr, to develop an attack plan. However, as they approached the Terek River, the Soviet forces had consolidated multiple defensive lines, forcing the division to engage a series of fortified positions before being able to reach the Georgian Military Road, a critical route used by the Soviets to receive supplies from the United States. Faced with the complex situation, Felix Steiner divided his unit into 4 columns with distinct missions, but with a common purpose: break enemy resistance and open a path to the Caspian Sea. The SS Nordland Regiment was to advance along the Kurp River route to capture Malgobek. The SS Viking Panzer Battalion, together with SS Germania Regiment units, was tasked with breaching the main defences and establishing a foothold in the area. The SS Westland Regiment was ordered to seize control of Sagopshin. The division's engineers, supported by the rest of SS Germania Regiment, were to continue the offensive along the Kurp. The attack began at dawn on September 25th to 26th, 1942, but the advance of the SS Nordland Regiment was quickly halted when they discovered that the Soviet forces not only outnumbered them, but were also well entrenched in pre-prepared defensive positions. In less than 30 minutes, almost half of the unit's soldiers had been eliminated. Despite significant casualties, the hill assigned as the objective was secured, and its commander Fritz von Scholz received the Knight's Cross in recognition of his leadership during the battle. On October 6th, the troops of the SS Viking Division managed to capture Malgobek, but the plan to take the capital and open a route to the Caspian could not be realized. The closest point to Grozny reached was Hill 701, secured by the Finnish volunteers of the 3rd Battalion of the SS Nordland Regiment. Throughout the operation, the division suffered more than 1,500 casualties, and several combat units were decimated to the point of having only a few dozen men left. As a veteran of the unit would later recall, counting the fallen no longer mattered, only those who remained alive. At the beginning of November 1942, the division was relocated from the meander of the Terek River to the Urukh-Alagir sector to participate in a new attempt to advance eastward, this time towards Orjonikidze instead of Grozny. Its arrival was crucial to liberate the 13th Panzer Division, which was encircled in Gizel. After achieving this maneuver, the unit took up a defensive position behind the Fyagdon River. Meanwhile, the encirclement of the 6th Army in Stalingrad turned the Caucasus into a secondary theatre of operations. When the attempt to break the siege failed due to the Soviet advance, the entire German strategy in the region was compromised. Given this situation, the SS Viking Division was one of the first units withdrawn to reinforce the retreat of the 4th Panzer Army. From December 24th, it began its transfer to Remontnaya, arriving there on the 31st of the same month. From there, the division undertook a strategic withdrawal through Zimovniki, Proletarskaya, securing the bridge over the Manik River, and continued through Zelina and Yegorlikskaya, finally reaching Bataisk and Rostov. Finally, on February 4th, it managed to escape through the Rostov Gap. In the first week of November 1942, the division was moved from the bend of the Terek River to the Urukh-Alagir sector, with the objective of joining a renewed advance eastward. Instead of heading toward Grozny, the offensive was directed toward Orjonikidze. Its arrival was crucial in rescuing the 13th Panzer Division, which was besieged in Geisel. After breaking the encirclement, the unit assumed defensive positions behind the Fyagdon River. The collapse of the 6th Army in Stalingrad changed strategic priorities, relegating the Caucasus to a secondary role. Faced with the inability to free the trapped forces in the city and the unstoppable advance of the Red Army, the situation in the region became unsustainable. In response, The SS Wiking Division was one of the first to be withdrawn to reinforce the 4th Panzer Army in its retreat. From December 24th, it began its transfer to Remontnaya, arriving on December 31st. From there, it initiated a strategic retreat, passing through Zimovniki, Proletarskaya, securing an important crossing over the Manik, then traversing Zelina and Yegorlikskaya, continuing towards Bataisk and Rostov. Finally, on February 4th, it managed to escape through the breach in Rostov. By the end of November 1942, the unit was redesignated as the 5th SS Panzergrenadier Division Wiking, consolidating its prestige as one of the elite formations. In the early months of 1943, it received orders to withdraw to southern Ukraine near Kharkov, where fierce battles were raging following the abandonment of the city by Paul Hausser's 2nd SS Panzer Corps. With Erich von Manstein in command of Army Group South, the 5th SS Wiking and the 11th Panzer Division were sent against the Popov Mobile Group, a powerful Soviet armored force threatening to cut a key railway line. However, the 5th SS Wiking faced serious difficulties. Its Panzer Grenadier regiments had been decimated after the exhausting Caucasus campaign, and its armored battalion lacked sufficient tanks to face the enemy. Despite these obstacles, the division managed to contain the Soviet assault, defending the vital supply line and contributing to the annihilation of the Popov Mobile Group. After the recapture of Kharkov, the 5th SS Wiking was withdrawn from combat to be reinforced and reorganized as a Panzergrenadier division. Thanks to the intervention of Heinrich Himmler and Paul Hausser, it was established that all Waffen SS Panzergrenadier divisions would have a tank regiment instead of a single battalion. This modification effectively made these units full-fledged panzer divisions, even though they were not officially designated as such. With this reorganization, the 5th SS Wiking received Schützenpanzerwagen SDKFZ, 251 for one of its infantry battalions, and on February 28, 1943, the creation of a new panzer battalion began. However, this unit would not see combat until more than a year later, when it participated in the Battle of Kovel. In the second half of 1943, the 5th SS Wiking underwent a series of significant changes. Its commander, Felix Steiner, who had been promoted to Gruppenführer, was transferred to lead the 3rd Germanic SS Panzer Corps, which was in the process of being formed in Croatia. His replacement was Herbert Otto Giel, an officer who would soon prove his ability to lead the unit. At the same time, the remnants of the SS Regiment Nordland, along with its commander Fritz von Scholz, were removed from the division and used as the foundation for the creation of the 11th SS Freiwilligen Panzergrenadier Division Nordland. Meanwhile, the Finnisches Freiwilligen Bataillon der Waffen SS was disbanded as the 2-year service commitment agreed upon for Finnish soldiers had ended. To compensate for the loss of these troops, as well as that of the Regiment Nordland, the Estnisches Freiwilligen Panzergrenadier Bataillon Narwa, composed of Estonian recruits, was incorporated into the division. While the division was undergoing re-equipment, it participated in minor skirmishes against partisans. The reorganization was completed by the end of June, at which point it was transferred to Izium, where, along with the 23rd Panzer Division, it became part of Manstein's Army Group Reserve in preparation for the imminent Operation Zitadelle. As the offensive was underway, several Soviet units launched simultaneous attacks towards Orel and Kharkov. The 5th SS Wiking engaged Soviet forces near Kharkov, where the Estonian soldiers of the division proved their effectiveness by destroying approximately 100 Soviet tanks over several days of combat. Even after the cancellation of the German offensive, the division continued fighting to contain Soviet attacks. Further south, on the Mius front, a major Soviet offensive, Operation Rumyantsev, threatened to break through German lines. To confront this crisis, the 5th SS Wiking was reinforced with the 3rd SS Panzergrenadier Division Totenkopf and the 2nd SS Panzergrenadier Division Das Reich, being sent to the Mius-Bogodukov sector with the goal of halting the Soviet advance. In the ensuing battles, the SS divisions managed to defeat 2 Soviet armored armies with a combined total of more than 1,000 tanks, destroying around 800 enemy armored vehicles. Despite the intensity of the combat, the SS divisions never had more than 50 operational panzers at any given time. In October, the 5th SS Wiking was withdrawn from the front once again, this time to be reorganized as a panzer division, adopting the new name of the 5th SS Panzer Division Wiking. To increase the division's operational capacity, the volunteer Walloon unit, 5th SS Sturmbrigade Wallonienne, under the leadership of Léon de Grelle, was assigned to it. Initially, many veterans of the 5th SS Wiking were skeptical of their combat performance, but the Walloons earned their respect after proving their capability in battle near Teclino, where they led an assault into enemy territory. At the same time, the creation of a 2nd Panzer Battalion in Germany was ordered. While the 5th SS Wiking fought near Teclino, various armoured formations of the Red Army advanced along the flanks of the sector, managing to encircle the German troops belonging to the ex-Erzken and 11 Army Corps in the Korsun area. During the Battle of the Korsun-Cherkasy Pocket, the 5th SS Wiking was tasked with containing Soviet attacks on the eastern side of the encirclement, while General Wilhelm Stemmermann, commander of the trapped German forces, organized the movement of his troops westward with the intent to break the encirclement. The 5th SS Wiking, along with the 5th SS Sturmbrigade Wallonien, was ordered to remain in the rear and defend the position. They resisted multiple Soviet attempts to breach their lines near Novaya Buda, and after repelling enemy assaults, began a gradual retreat, moving in sections under the cover of night. As they crossed the Hell's Passage, the division was subjected to intense artillery fire and Soviet attacks, suffering heavy losses in both personnel and equipment. The 5th SS Wiking was severely battered in the Korsun battles, but its commander, Herbert Otto Gill, remained with his men in the fight and did not abandon the front line until the last survivors managed to escape. He was among the last to cross the Niloy-Tikich River to safety. After the withdrawal and reorganization, the 5th SS Sturmbrigade Wallonien was separated from the division and reassigned to other operations. After a short period of rest and resupply, the 5th SS Wiking was deployed to reinforce the defense of Kovel, where a powerful Soviet offensive threatened to take the city. Herbert Otto Gill organized a defensive perimeter around the town, but his forces soon became completely encircled by the Red Army. To break the siege, reinforcements were sent from Germany, including the 2nd Battalion of the SS Panzer Regiment 5 Wiking, equipped with the newly introduced Panther tanks, and the 3rd Battalion of the SS Panzer Grenadier Regiment Germania, which had been reinforced and was at full combat capacity. These units formed a relief contingent under the leadership of Obersturmführer Karl Nicolucci Lech, commander of the 8th Company of the 2nd Battalion of the SS Panzer Regiment 5 Wiking. Leading 5 Panthers, Nicolucci Lech ordered an immediate attack on Soviet positions, advancing decisively toward the besieged city. However, shortly after the assault began, he received a radio communication from inside the encirclement instructing him to halt the offensive and withdraw. In an act of defiance, and assuming the risk of a court-martial, he ordered his radio operator to ignore the instruction and continue the operation. During the advance, he managed to breach the Soviet encirclement, destroying multiple enemy tanks. His Panther was the first to break through Soviet lines, an action for which he was awarded the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross. Once a corridor was secured for the trapped troops in Kovel, the evacuation began. Unlike the Korsun retreat, this time the 5th SS Wiking managed to escape with most of its equipment and weaponry in operational condition. Battleships in Hell, the 5th SS Wiking on the Eastern Front, 1944. At the end of August 1944, the 5th SS Panzer Division Wiking received orders to move to Modlin, along the Vistula River near Warsaw, to integrate into the newly formed army group Vistula. In collaboration with the Fallschirm Panzer Division 1 Hermann Göring, the unit achieved the total destruction of the 3rd Tank Corps of the Red Army. The Soviet advance was halted with the outbreak of the Warsaw Uprising, leading to a period of relative calm on the front. Meanwhile, inside the city, Höhere SS und Polizeiführer Erich von dem Bach-Zelewski carried out the brutal suppression of the insurrection, annihilating both the Armia Krajowa and the civilian population, leaving Warsaw in ruins. The 5th SS Wiking remained in the Modlin region for the rest of the year, operating alongside the 3rd SS Panzer Division Totenkopf within the 4th SS Panzer Corps. During this time, Herbert Otto Gill was promoted to command of the SS Panzer Corps, leaving leadership of the division briefly in the hands of Oberfuhrer Dr. Eduard Deisenhofer. Shortly after, command was transferred to Standartenführer Johannes Mühlenkamp, then commander of the SS Panzer Regiment 5 Wiking. During the last months of the year, the division faced intense defensive battles in the Modlin area. In October, Mühlenkamp was replaced by Oberfuhrer Karl Ulrich, who would remain in command of the unit until the end of the war. In December 1944, the German forces trapped in Budapest, including the 9th SS Mountain Corps, were completely encircled. In response, the 4th SS Panzer Corps received orders to move south to join Hermann Balck's 6th Army, Army Group Balck, and participate in a rescue operation known as Operation Conrad. On January 1, 1945, the 5th SS Panzer Division Wiking went into action as part of Operation Conrad I, fighting alongside the 3rd SS Panzer Division Totenkopf. In the vicinity of Tata, the division's forward forces engaged the 4th Guards Tank Army of the Red Army, triggering fierce combat in which both SS divisions destroyed a significant number of Soviet armored vehicles. In just 3 days, the offensive advanced 45 kilometers through difficult terrain, covering more than half the distance to Budapest. However, the Soviets reinforced their defensive lines and managed to halt the offensive at Bicske, just 28 kilometers from the Hungarian capital. Seeing the advance frustrated, Herbert Otto Gieler ordered the withdrawal of the 5th SS Wiking, relocating it to a position south of Esztergom, near a strategic bend in the Danube River. There, on January 7th, a second attempt to break the encirclement began, Operation Conrad II. Despite harsh winter conditions, the division advanced southward with the objective of liberating Budapest. By January 12th, the SS Panzer Grenadier Regiment Westland had reached Pilisentkerest, positioning itself less than 20 kilometers from Buda. That morning, soldiers could see the city's towers and domes emerging through the mist. However, the advance had extended too far, leaving the division exposed to Soviet counterattacks. Unable to consolidate their position, the troops were ordered to withdraw and reorganize. Adolf Hitler, enraged by the lack of results, called the operation a complete waste. A third attempt to break the siege, Operation Conrad III, was launched alongside the 3rd Panzer Corps in a sector 100 kilometers to the south. During the offensive, German forces managed to penetrate 24 kilometers of the Soviet defensive line and destroyed the 135th Rifle Corps. However, the Red Army's rapid response, deploying additional reinforcements, prevented the Germans from achieving a decisive breakthrough. By the end of January, the 5th SS Wiking and the 3rd SS Totenkopf had suffered nearly 8,000 casualties, including more than 200 officers. In February 1945, the German troops trapped in Budapest finally capitulated. The 5th SS Wiking received orders to withdraw towards Lake Balaton, where Sepp Dietrich's 6th SS Panzer Army was preparing for a new offensive. After the collapse of Conrad III, the 5th SS Wiking adopted a defensive posture, gradually retreating towards Czechoslovakia. During the battles west of Budapest, the division suffered severe attrition, leaving it in a weakened position. By the start of Operation Frühlingserwachen, the division was too depleted to participate in the main offensive, and was relegated to support tasks within the 6th SS Panzer Army during the initial phases of the attack. During Operation Frühlingserwachen, the 5th SS Panzer Division Wiking was deployed on the left flank of the offensive, occupying a position between Velencesi and Stuhlweissenberg. As the German offensive advanced, the division had to endure intense combat against the Red Army, which attempted to encircle the German forces through flanking maneuvers. However, when the German offensive stalled, the Soviets launched a massive counteroffensive on March 15th, known as the Vienna Operation. The attack targeted the line between the 3rd SS Panzer Division Totenkopf, positioned north of the 5th SS Wiking, and the 2nd Hungarian Armoured Division, causing a rupture in contact between these units. In response, General Hermann Balck proposed quickly moving the ISS Panzer Corps to close the gap and prevent the IVSS Panzer Corps from being encircled. However, Hitler's approval took too long, and by the time the maneuver was finally authorized, the situation was already critical. By March 22nd, the 5th SS Wiking and the 3rd SS Totenkopf were nearly completely surrounded by the Soviet advance. In an attempt to prevent total collapse, Balck sent the 9th SS Panzer Division Hohenstaufen into battle to keep the Berhida corridor open. The fighting was fierce, and the Hohenstaufen suffered enormous casualties, but their sacrifice allowed the 4th SS Panzer Corps to escape encirclement. On March 24th, a new Soviet assault forced the exhausted German forces to retreat towards Vienna. Amid the chaos, contact with the ISS Panzer Corps was lost, shattering any attempt to establish a coordinated defense. Seeing that the situation was unsustainable, the 5th SS Wiking continued its withdrawal towards Czechoslovakia, engaging in defensive battles as it moved westward. On the night of May 12th to 13th, 1945, the headquarters of the 5th SS Panzer Division Wiking reached the American lines near Rastatt and Wagrain, where the unit formally surrendered. The commanding officers attempted to secure two key conditions: avoiding being handed over to the Soviets and retaining their vehicles during the process. The Americans accepted these terms. On June 1st, 1945, with minimal escort, the remnants of the division embarked on a long convoy march from Wagrain, passing through towns such as Markt Pongau, Bischofshofen, Golling, Hallein, Salzburg, Freilassing, Traunstein, Rosenheim, Bad Aibling, and Bad Tölz, finally reaching Eberfing. In several areas, the local population gathered along the road, offering cigarettes, food, and flowers to the soldiers despite the presence of American troops in the streets. At one point along the highway, a high-ranking American officer drove past the column in his jeep, standing up to salute while repeatedly shouting, "Bravo, Wiking Division!" However, any illusion of favorable treatment quickly crumbled. Conditions in the Allied prisoner camps proved devastating. The lack of food, disease, and brutal treatment claimed the lives of many Waffen SS veterans. Regarding its combat history, the division accumulated a significant number of decorations. Throughout the war, 67 of its members were awarded the Knight's Cross, including 3 unconfirmed cases. Among them, 8 received oak leaves, 3 were distinguished with swords, and 1 was awarded diamonds. Shadows of the 5th SS Wiking, War Crimes and the infamous Joseph Mengele. During its deployment on the Eastern Front, certain elements of the 5th SS Panzer Division Wiking were complicit in war crimes in coordination with Einsatzgruppe A. Testimonies indicate that a supply unit led by Obersturmführer Braunagel and Untersturmführer Kochalty collaborated in the persecution and extermination of Ukrainian Jews. Prisoners were forced to march through a corridor of soldiers who brutally beat them as they advanced, only to be executed by Einsatzgruppen officers at the end of the passage. Their bodies were thrown into a bomb crater. The involvement of the 1st Mountain Division in these events is also suspected. In total, between 50 and 60 Jews were executed in this manner as part of a broader operation that claimed the lives of more than 700 people. Historian Eleanor Lapin, from the Institute for the History of Jews in Austria, has documented multiple atrocities committed by members of the 5th SS Wiking in her research, The Death Marches of Hungarian Jews Through Austria, in the spring of 1945. On March 28, 1945, a group of 80 Jews deemed fit to continue an evacuation march was executed by 3 soldiers of the 5th SS Wiking and 5 military police officers. Days later, on April 4th, 20 prisoners from another evacuation column attempted to escape near Eggenfeld in the vicinity of Gratkorn. Captured by division troops stationed in the area, they were led to a ravine and executed by firing squad. In the following days, between April 7th and 11th, another 18 prisoners who attempted to flee were also executed. Despite the severity of these accusations, the war crimes attributed to the 5th SS Wiking have not been fully verified, largely because the division was not prosecuted at the Nuremberg trials, leaving many of its actions without formal judgment or official condemnation. Among the names associated with the 5th SS Wiking, Dr. Josef Mengele stands out for the infamy he would later achieve in the Nazi concentration camps. During the division's early campaigns, Mengele served as a combat medic and was awarded the Iron Cross for rescuing 2 wounded soldiers under enemy fire. However, after sustaining an injury on the front, he was declared unfit for combat and transferred to the SS concentration camp system. where he gained notoriety for his cruel medical experiments and ruthless selection of prisoners for execution at Auschwitz. Despite his legacy of horror, Mengele always took pride in his time in the Waffen SS and the decorations he received in battle. Over time, as the atrocities of the extermination camps were revealed, many of his former comrades attempted to erase his name from the division's veteran records in an effort to dissociate him from their military history. Herbert Otto Giel, the steel strategist of the Waffen SS. Within this brutal division, undoubtedly the most prominent figure was Herbert Otto Giel. This Waffen SS general not only commanded the legendary Wiking division, but also rose to lead the 4th SS Panzer Corps, becoming one of the most decorated officers in the organization. Giel began his career in the SS in 1931 after joining the National Socialist Party. His rise was swift. In 1932, he took command of a platoon in the 49th SS Standard in Braunschweig, and the following year he was promoted to SS Sturmführer. However, his career was interrupted in 1933 when he was expelled from the party and the SS due to accusations of conspiracy against local leaders. In 1934, after a review of his case, he was acquitted and reinstated, resuming his career within the organization. As the SS Verfügungstruppe evolved into an elite military force, Giel established himself as a distinguished leader. He was assigned to the SS Standarte Deutschland and later to the SS Standarte Germania, where he commanded the 2nd Battalion. In 1937, he was promoted to SS Sturmbannführer and completed advanced command courses in Döberitz and Jüterbog, focusing on infantry and artillery tactics. When World War II broke out, Giel was commanding an artillery battalion during the invasion of Poland, which earned him a promotion to SS Obersturmbannführer in October 1939. During the 1940 campaign in France, he continued leading his unit and remained in combat until the end of the offensive. His career advanced quickly, and in January 1941, he was promoted to SS Standartenführer, obtaining command of the artillery regiment of the Wiking division. As the war progressed, Giel demonstrated great skill in military leadership. During the invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941, he led his units in key battles, earning successive promotions until reaching the rank of SS Oberführer in October of that year. In 1942, his performance in the Kuban earned him the Knight's Cross, and he was promoted to SS Brigadeführer in December. In May 1943, he was appointed commander of the Wiking Division, leading it in intense battles in Ukraine and the Caucasus. One of the most critical moments of his career came in January 1944, when the Wiking Division was encircled in the Korsun-Cherkasy pocket. Giel led the breakout offensive, enabling part of the German forces to escape the encirclement. His role in this operation earned him the swords for his Knight's Cross. Months later, in Kovel, he led the defense of the city, which was surrounded by the Red Army, holding out until being rescued. In recognition of his actions, he received the diamonds for his Knight's Cross in April 1944. In August 1944, Giel left command of the Wiking Division and assumed leadership of the 4th SS Panzer Corps. In this new role, he participated in the defense of Warsaw and the Battle of Radzimin. In November 1944, he was promoted to SS Obergruppenführer. In January 1945, his corps took part in the failed Operation Conrad, an attempt to break the Soviet siege of Budapest, which resulted in massive losses. Later, during Operation Spring Awakening, his forces attempted one last counter-offensive at Lake Balaton, but were forced to retreat. In the 1950s, Herbert Otto Giel became actively involved in HIAG, an organization created by former Waffen SS members in West Germany to improve the image of its former combatants and advocate for their legal recognition and financial benefits. Alongside figures such as Felix Steiner, Otto Kumm, and Paul Hauser, he played a key role in consolidating the group. In 1951, Giel founded the publication Viking Ruf, Call of the Viking, a newspaper primarily aimed at veterans of the Wiking Division, covering topics related to their military past and post-war situation. On December 26, 1966, Herbert Otto Giel passed away from a heart attack in the town of Stemmen near Hanover, where he was buried in the local cemetery. Felix Steiner, the architect of armored power in the Waffen SS. Another of the most important commanders of the SS, Felix Steiner, is recognized as one of the most innovative and strategic generals within the Waffen SS during World War II. His meteoric rise came after his brilliant leadership of the Deutschland Regiment, which earned him the trust of Heinrich Himmler, who entrusted him with the creation of the Viking Panzer Division. Born on May 23, 1896 in Stallupönen, East Prussia, Steiner began his military career in 1914 by joining as a cadet in the Prussian Officer Corps, just as Germany entered World War I. His performance in combat earned him the Iron Cross First and Second Class, and by the end of the conflict, he had reached the rank of Oberleutnant. After the war, he led a Freikorps unit in Memel, East Prussia, before rejoining the army in 1922. His career advanced quickly, and by 1933 he already held the rank of Major. With the rise of Nazism to power, Steiner worked in the General Staff of the Reichswehr, specializing in tactics and military training methods. During this period, he became fascinated by the doctrines of the Schutzstaffel, SS, and the Sturmabteilung, SA, particularly the training model of the SS Verfügungstruppe, SSVT, which promoted a closer and more trust-based relationship between officers and soldiers, in contrast to the rigid traditional Prussian system of the German army. In 1935, he officially joined the SS and was given command of a battalion within the SSVT. His rapid adaptation and effectiveness allowed him to rise quickly to the rank of SS Standartenführer, Colonel, taking command of the SS Deutschland Regiment. At the beginning of World War II, he was already an SS Oberführer and continued to command the regiment. His outstanding participation in the invasion of Poland and the Battle of France earned him the Knight's Cross on August 15, 1940. After the campaign ended, Himmler selected him to oversee the creation of a new Waffen SS division, composed of volunteers from Western and Northern Europe. Thus, the Viking Division was born, made up of fighters from the Netherlands, Wallonia, and Scandinavia, including the Freikorps Denmark Regiment. Within the Viking Division, Felix Steiner managed to form a highly effective combat force, integrating soldiers of diverse nationalities and cultures, a challenge that was not easy to overcome. His leadership remained firm in multiple brutal engagements on the Eastern Front from 1941 until his appointment as commander of the 3rd SS Panzer Corps, Germanic. Although some historians have documented the participation of this division in war crimes and massacres of civilians, the official Viking combat reports do not mention such accusations. Steiner had a clear stance on the Commissar order. No rational officer would enforce such an order. For him, such a directive went against the ideal behavior of a soldier, undermined discipline, and provided no benefit to combat morale. Even if the order had justification within Nazi ideology, Steiner claimed that he would have instructed his troops to ignore it completely. To provide context, the Commissar order was a directive issued directly by Adolf Hitler, ordering the immediate execution of any captured Soviet political commissar on the battlefield. This order came into effect with the start of Operation Barbarossa on June 22, 1941. In January 1945, Steiner and his 3rd SS Panzer Corps, Germanic, were evacuated from the Kurland pocket to reinforce the defense of German territory against the advancing Red Army. The 3rd SS Panzer Corps was incorporated into Army Group Vistula and subordinated to the newly created 11th SS Panzer Army, although this army only existed on paper. When Soviet forces reached the Oder River, the 11th SS Panzer Army disintegrated, and the 3rd SS Panzer Corps was transferred to the 3rd Panzer Army as a strategic reserve during the final offensive on Berlin. During the Battle of Halbe, one of the first major engagements of the Soviet offensive, Generaloberst Gotthard Heinrici, commander of Army Group Vistula, ordered the transfer of most of the divisions under the command of the 3rd SS Panzer Corps to the 9th German Army, led by General of Infantry Theodor Busse. Steiner was always one of Hitler's favorite commanders, who admired his ability to solve tasks quickly and effectively. Additionally, his loyalty to the Waffen SS, rather than the traditional Prussian officer corps to which most of his colleagues belonged, made him a key figure within the Nazi high command. Even Joseph Goebbels praised his determination in a diary entry dated March 1, 1945. He is an energetic man with absolute clarity in each of his actions, Any mission entrusted to him, he carries out with total dedication and commitment. On April 21, 1945, the First Belarusian Front, led by Marshal Zhukov, managed to break through the German defenses at Seelow Heights, leaving the road to Berlin open. In a state of panic, Hitler ordered Steiner to launch an immediate counterattack with the disorganized units under his command, known as Armeeabteilung Steiner, Steiner's army detachment. In practice, this detachment was nothing more than a corps with extremely limited resources, far from being an effective offensive force. Hitler's plan was for Steiner to attack the northern flank of the Soviet breakthrough, while Theodor Busse's Ninth Army would advance from the south in an attempt to encircle Zhukov's forces in a pincer movement. To reinforce the offensive, Steiner was to receive 3 additional divisions from the CI Army Corps: the 4th SS Polizei Division, the 5th Jäger Division, and the 25th Panzer Grenadier Division. These units were located north of the Fino Canal, just behind the 1st Belarusian Front. Additionally, Helmuth Weidling's 56th Panzer Corps, positioned east of Berlin with an exposed position in Verneuken, was also to participate in the attack. The objective was for the 3 divisions of the CI Army Corps to advance from the south, departing from Eberswald towards the Finau Canal, while the LVI Panzer Corps would act in conjunction to split the First Belarusian Front in 2 and facilitate its destruction. However, Steiner informed Heinrici that the plan was completely unfeasible. The 5th Jäger Division and the 25th Panzer Grenadier Division were in defensive positions and could not abandon their lines until the 2nd Naval Division arrived to replace them, which would delay any offensive action. As a result, Steiner only had 2 battalions of the 4th SS Polizei Division available, but they lacked proper equipment and were insufficient to carry out an operation of that magnitude. According to Steiner's testimony, Heinrici contacted General der Infanterie Hans Krebs, Chief of Staff of the German Army High Command, Oberkommando des Heeres, OKH, by phone to inform him that the attack plan could not be executed. Heinrici requested to speak directly with Hitler to explain the situation, but he was told that the Führer was too busy to take the call. On April 22, 1945, during a meeting with his general staff, Hitler finally realized that Steiner would not launch the offensive he had been desperately waiting for. Enraged, he erupted into a violent fit of fury, blaming his generals for Germany's imminent defeat. At that moment, he proclaimed his decision to remain in Berlin until the end and to take his own life amid the ruins of the Reich's capital. That same day, Generalleutnant Rudolf Holst was given command of the few remaining forces of Steiner that were still capable of fighting, and he was ordered to participate in a final desperate attempt to break the Soviet encirclement of Berlin. According to this plan, Holster would attack from the north, while General der Panzertruppe Walter Wenck would advance from the west and Theodor Busse from the south. However, as feared, the operation turned out to be a complete failure. The exhausted, disorganized, and demoralized German troops failed to achieve any significant breakthrough. On April 27, 1945, Soviet forces advancing from the north and south of Berlin met in the western sector of the city, sealing its final fate. After Germany's surrender, Steiner was captured and imprisoned until 1948. He was brought before the Nuremberg trials, but all charges against him were dismissed due to lack of evidence, leading to his release. In his later years, he dedicated himself to writing his memoirs and several works about the war. Felix Steiner passed away on May 12, 1966. Freikorps Denmark, the Danish volunteers in the Waffen SS. Denmark occupied a unique position within German-dominated Europe. Although it was invaded by the Wehrmacht during Operation Weserübung between April 8 and 9, 1940, it managed to retain its own government, albeit operating under German military supervision. After the launch of Operation Barbarossa on June 22, 1941, when Germany initiated its offensive against the Soviet Union, Denmark severed diplomatic relations with Moscow and signed the Anti-Comintern Pact, which automatically aligned it in a state of war against the USSR. On April 20, 1940, recruitment of Scandinavian volunteers was announced in both Denmark and Norway to form a new unit called Regiment Nordland, intended to serve within the German armed forces. Young Norwegians and Danes aged 17 to 23 were encouraged to enlist for a minimum period of 2 years. As part of the agreement, those who enlisted automatically received German citizenship, with the same rights and privileges as a Reichsdeutscher, native German citizen. Initially, about 200 Danes responded to the call. On July 4, 1941, the Danish government issued a statement announcing the creation of a regiment identified as Freikorps Danmark, under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Christian Peder Krissing, an artillery officer of the Danish army. The unit's name combined German and Danish terms. The word Freikorps of German origin means volunteer corps or free corps, while Denmark referred to the Scandinavian nation. However, the Danes themselves referred to it as Frikorps Danmark, a term that evoked the former Danish Volunteer Expeditionary Force, which, after the 1917 revolution, had fought in the Russian Civil War alongside anti-Bolshevik forces in the Baltic states. In February 1941, Danish authorities revoked the law that prohibited the recruitment of Danish citizens by foreign armies. However, by that time, around 600 Danish volunteers had already joined the ranks of the Waffen SS, primarily within Regiment Nordland. The Danish Nazi movement, known as Danmarks National Socialistiske Arbeiderparti, DNSAP, had emerged in 1930. However, the Danish population's response to recruitment in the Waffen SS was limited. The harsh training and mistreatment by SS instructors discouraged many, and by the fall of 1941, only 200 to 300 Danish volunteers remained, most of them integrated into Regiment Nordland of the Viking Division. Despite the initially low participation, various negotiations and Denmark's status as a protectorate, rather than an occupied territory, facilitated an increase in the number of recruits. As an incentive, members of the Danish army who voluntarily joined the Waffen SS were allowed to retain their years of service and pension rights. With the tacit consent of the Danish government, enlistment numbers increased, and by September 1941, more than 1,000 volunteers had joined the ranks of the Waffen SS. By the end of 1941, Freikorps Danmark had a total strength of 1,164 men. The unit was equipped with standard Waffen SS gear and was distinguished by an armband on the left sleeve of the uniform, bearing the name Freikorps Danmark, along with a national shield above it, displaying the colours of the Danish flag. On the uniform's collar, members also wore an insignia with national colours, alongside the SS runes and the Triphos symbol. In November 1941, the commander of Freikorps Danmark, Christian Peder Krissing, clashed with several officers of the unit who were loyal to the Nazi Party. Even Heinrich Himmler was skeptical of Krissing, who wanted Freikorps Danmark to be an apolitical unit, rather than fully aligned with Nazi ideology. Despite growing pressure in Denmark for FD to adopt a more political and Nazi stance, the situation culminated in Krissing travelling to Berlin with his son Jens Krissing, where he was presented with the option to resign and return to Denmark or be transferred to an artillery regiment of the Waffen SS. Krissing chose the second option. Following this conflict, SS Hauptsturmführer Knud Borger Martinsen was appointed as the temporary commander of FD by Himmler and remained in charge until February 1942. That month, Christian Friedrich von Schalburg, who had served in the 5th SS Panzergrenadier Division Wiking in Russia, specifically in Regiment Germania, was appointed as the new commander of Freikorps Danmark. In May 1942, the Danish volunteer unit, designated as Freikorps Danmark, was deployed to the Eastern Front to reinforce the Totenkopf Division, which was engaged in intense defensive fighting in the Demyansk area. Its commander, SS Sturmbannführer Christian Friedrich von Schalburg, former leader of the DNSAP, fell in battle during these operations. In June 1942, after the Soviet capture of Vasilievshchina, Freikorps Danmark received orders to retake the city, which it accomplished after intense combat against the Red Army, which had air and armoured support. Despite being recognized for its performance in battle, the unit suffered enormous losses. By August 1942, only 22% of its original force remained combat capable. After a brief stay in Denmark to recover, the veterans of Freikorps were met with jeers instead of honours, reflecting the widespread rejection among the Danish population toward their participation in the war. In December 1942, the unit was sent back to the front, this time to the Veliki Luki region, where it faced violent attacks from the NKVD's internal security forces. Soviet pressure temporarily forced the Danes to retreat, although they retook their positions the following day at great cost. In January 1943, the German army began a general withdrawal from the area, allowing Soviet forces to regain control. Later, Freikorps Danmark was relocated north, where it participated in the destruction of enemy positions in Teide. In March 1943, the unit was sent to Grafenwohr, Germany, and was ultimately disbanded in May of the same year. As a distinctive insignia, Danish volunteers wore their national colours on the collar of their uniforms, combined with the SS runic symbols. They also bore a shield with national colours and an armband featuring the unit's name. The Danish volunteers formed a battalion of 1,164 men who fought on the Eastern Front. Their most notable participation occurred during the Demyansk Pocket, where they fought alongside the 3rd SS Totenkopf Division. Among them, the 24th SS Regiment stood out, commanded by Per Sorensen, a lieutenant of the Danish army who voluntarily joined the Waffen SS due to his strong opposition to communism. After completing his training at the SS officer school in Bad Tolz, he rejoined the Danish Legion. Sorensen played a crucial role in the battles of Demyansk, where he lost 160 of his 200 men, but managed to hold his assigned positions, resisting multiple Soviet attacks. On July 16, 1942, aware of the critical situation, he contacted his command to inform them that his forces were at their limit, but assured them that he would defend the position to the end. The next day, his troops faced a fierce assault from a Soviet battalion supported by armored vehicles. Despite the overwhelming pressure, just when it seemed they could not hold out any longer, the Russian forces ultimately withdrew. After his distinguished performance on the Eastern Front, Sorensen was sent to Berlin in the final days of the war. During the most intense battles in the German capital, he led the defense of a tram station where he met his death. While attempting to climb a post to identify enemy positions, a Soviet sniper shot him, killing him instantly. His men, despite the desperate situation and under relentless Soviet bombardment, took a moment to pay tribute to their leader. He was buried in the Plötzensee cemetery, where other Danish and German fighters from the Nordland Division also rested. The farewell ceremony was carried out with solemnity. Sergeant Hermann delivered a speech in his honor, followed by 3 volleys from the guard. One by one, Germans and Danes passed by the grave, throwing a handful of soil as a sign of respect. An artillery auxiliary from the Luftwaffe placed a bouquet of flowers on the tomb. Freikorps Danmark, under the command of Christian Friedrich von Schalberg, operated with the backing of the Danish government, which provided funding and logistical support. However, at the end of the war, many of its members were tried for treason. Danish authorities officially declared that those who had enlisted should have understood that the government acted under pressure when allowing the formation of Freikorps Danmark and signing the Anti-Comintern Pact.